Hey everybody, it's Christina from Creations with Christina. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be playing with the embossing glaze. This is the new Distress Embossing Glaze and I am in love. I love this stuff. I've been playing around with setting up my tags for my swatches and testing it out with different stencils and stamps, and it's really cool. So I thought I would show you first how I'm just, generally how to use them, and then a couple of samples of things that I've worked on so far, and I'm sure there are many more ways to use these other than what I'm going to show you today. I'm just loving these so much and really excited about them. So you're going to need some kind of embossing ink. You can use your Versamark. There is a new Distress Embossing Dauber that I've learned that you need to keep it stored upside down so it keeps the ink towards the top of this. And there's also the embossing pens, and I have a pen but I can't find it anywhere, so I'm not going to be showing you that one today, but I'm just going to show you the tags and then a couple of other ways that I've been playing with them. So I'm going to start off, and I have two left that I need to make my swatches for. So I'm going to use the Dauber on one and the Versamark ink on the other. Of course, you can use any type of embossing ink that you want. I do know that this Dauber, it's best to keep it stored upside down. It keeps the ink towards the top where the sponge is, and just to kind of activate it, you do have to kind of pounce it a couple of times. I have been forgetting that I need to store it this way, so it takes sometimes a little bit to get that ink flowing again. And it's really hard to kind of see on your tag if the ink is down, because it is so clear. So I'm just going to give this a good inking, and there we go. I feel like it's flowing a little bit better now. Oop. It's like putting the wrong top on there. And I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock just so I have something to catch my embossing powder or my embossing glaze. This one is called Antique Linen, and I haven't even opened it yet to even see what it's like. So I just have to remove the wrapper to it. And I love this stuff. I'm like so excited about this. So this is the Antique Linen, which is one of my all-time favorite distress colors, Antique Linen, and there's another one that I really love. The Worn Lipstick is my two favorite colors. What are your favorite embossing colors? I'd love to know. So leave a comment below on what your favorite distress ink colors are. And I seem to not be able to pick things up today. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sprinkle this on. And I do know, for me, I noticed that if I tap it, too much of the powder falls off. So I've been just kind of sprinkling the powder on, letting it sit there, and then we'll just transfer this back into my container here and put the lid back on. And we're just going to go ahead and heat this up, and it's really hard to see when it's melting. Most embossing powders you can kind of see when it's melting. This one is really hard to see, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera. All right, so there is our Antique Linen. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the shine on that. Love it. Now I'm going to do this one with the Versamark ink. So I'm just smooshing it into the tag. And this one is a Fired Brick, I think. Yeah, Fired Brick. So I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle it on. Give it a little tap to get any extra. There was a big clump of extra there. So just a light tap, not like my regular embossing powders where I kind of flick it off, because too much does pop off of there. And then we'll go ahead and heat set this one. Isn't that beautiful? I love this stuff. All right, so that's just my swatches. And then I'll just put these onto a binder ring and keep them stored with my other swatches. So I thought I would show you just a couple of other things that you can do. This has got to be one of my favorites. And then with this one, I thought I would show you an example of what it looks like with the glaze versus a regular embossing powder. So I just have a stamp in here, and I'm going to use my archival black ink, and I'm doing a foam stamp. So I took out the insert inside my MISTI so that I have the room to do a foam stamp. If you're doing a clear stamp, you would leave that insert in there, the little kind of like mouse pad mat. But for foam stamps, you take that out so that you have the room for that extra, for the foam that's built into the stamp. All right. I just love these flowers. They're so pretty. And normally I would use embossing powder, but for this one I'm just going to kind of do a quick splat of embossing ink and show you the difference between the glaze and a regular embossing powder. So I'm just going to go ahead and set down some of this dauber. Make sure we got some good ink flowing out of here. So hopefully this is enough ink. I am going to actually come in with my VersaFine because I know that has a lot of ink in it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock to collect my embossing powder. And let's go with, let's see, I love the peel paint. I did this one already. This is the embossing glaze. So I'm going to do half of this in the embossing glaze and half of it with a regular embossing powder. And now I pulled out some embossing powder. This is just liquid platinum and a regular embossing powder. So they look pretty much the same when you're looking at them right now, but once we heat it up, it's going to look totally different. I'm going to heat up the regular embossing side first, and then we'll do the glaze so you can kind of see the difference. So this is regular embossing powder in the liquid platinum, which is one of my favorite embossing powder colors. So with that, you can see that it pretty much covers up our image that we stamped. This is the fun part, the embossing glaze. Isn't that amazing? It actually makes the black ink that we use to stamp our image much more clear, more vibrant. I love this stuff. This is stuff, I've been having so much fun playing with this. So I'm going to show you two more things that I've played with and that I've been really enjoying. So it's working with stencils. So I'm going to take a stencil and just put this right over my cardstock. And I do have the pixie spray on here, but I've been using this stencil over and over and over. So I think that my sticky might not be completely sticky. And we're going to take the embossing dauber. We just want to make sure it's got some good flow to it. It's kind of hard to tell if it's flowing, but you can kind of feel it on the plastic. And I'm just going to go ahead and use this stencil as with my dauber here and create a fun background with using the Distress Glaze, the Distress Embossing Glaze, I should say. So we're just going to make sure we're all nice and inked up here. I'm going to take my stencil off. And I'm going to use Weathered Wood in the Distress Glaze embossing powder. And honestly, this Weathered Wood was never one of my favorites, and I just used it, and oh. Now one thing I forgot to do, so there's going to be a mess here, is I forgot to use my embossing buddy to make sure that I didn't have any extra embossing powder sticking around. So that is going to be a little bit of a extra on my background here. So I'm just going to go ahead and heat set the embossing powder. All right, there you go. Isn't that awesome? And now what you can do is you can add your Distress Oxide right over the top of this if you want. I would take a wet cloth or something just to kind of wipe down so you can bring back the color. I'm not going to do this whole thing, but I did want to just show you this. So this one is that I did the glaze, I did my embossing first, and then added my color. What I love the most is this is one that I've already added the color to. As a matter of fact, I even added some kind of texture to it by adding water to what was on my mat here, just to give it a little bit more of that distress look. This is my favorite part, and something that I was totally amazed by. I mean, I've seen it, I've seen Tim Holtz do it, but I was not expecting it in real life, how awesome it would be. I'm gonna put my stencil back down, pull in my dauber again to add some more ink to this. Don't forget to store your daubers upside down, which I think I just left it sitting up. So we're just going to make sure this is nice and covered with embossing ink. So now I'm going to take the same embossing powder I just used, and we are going to emboss this again with the weathered wood embossing powder. Again, I forgot to use my embossing buddy. So let's go ahead and heat set our embossing glaze. This is the part I love the best. This one right here is the one I did the embossing glaze first and added my Distress Oxide ink. And this is the one where I did the Distress Oxide ink first and then added the embossing glaze. And I don't know if the camera's picking this up, but it's a totally different color. So we have the weathered wood, which looks more like the weathered wood, but when you do it over a Distress Oxide or some color or Distress ink, you're gonna get a totally different color. So this is more of a green tone, and this is one that I did before, so you could kind of, maybe this one's a little bit better to see. This is one that I did with the weathered wood and inked afterwards, and this is one where I inked first and added the weathered wood. So you get more of a greenish look to it because of it's pulling the color up from underneath rather than the color sitting on top of. All right, so I remembered my embossing buddy this time. I'm gonna go ahead and just add a little bit of powder to this piece of cardstock. And I have my stamp that I used before. And for this one, I'm gonna take my embossing ink. You can use the dauber or you can use just your Versamark, which is what I'm gonna use. And I'm gonna ink up my stamp set and use my glaze to create a really cool background or a really cool stamped image. So I stamped this out. Now it has a little bit of, you can kind of see the gray because the embossing ink pulled some of the ink off the stamp, even though I cleaned it really well. But we're just gonna go with it. And we're gonna add our glaze right to our stamped image. Again, you don't wanna tap too much because you wanna keep as much on there as you can. And you can see that when you use the embossing buddy, how much cleaner your background is. So I'm just gonna go ahead and heat set this now. And there we go. And then of course you can go over this with your distress inks. If you have the distress sprays, you can use those as well, and you can create some really awesome backgrounds. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little introduction to these distress glazes. I am having a blast with them. I've been playing around. I've been, messing around with colors. I've been trying out the glaze along with the regular embossing powders just to kind of see the difference and get familiar with how these work. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to leave a comment below on your favorite distress ink colors, and I will catch you guys all in the next video. Thanks for watching.